CTV News at 5 with Hudson Mack.
Ian Thao has been granted parole. The disgraced investment advisor was convicted of defrauding $8 million from his investors, some of whom lost their entire savings, but he will be set free. Thao was serving a 9-year sentence, denied parole in January, but a Supreme Court of Canada ruling has allowed him and others to get parole sooner than they might have expected. Accelerated parole in Canada was abolished in 2011, but the Supreme Court ruling says that law cannot be applied retroactively, and because Thao was sentenced in 2010, he thus becomes eligible for parole sooner, and it's been granted. It was an administrative ruling. There was no hearing. The parole board says that Thao's release is being processed and that the release is imminent. He'll be let out with conditions, though. He must report to his parole officer on a regular basis and make full disclosure of his finances. He must also report any intimate relationship he's in and seek and gain either employment or academic upgrading. He is also ordered to see a psychologist for management of his stress. If he violates any of these conditions, his parole could be revoked and he could go back to prison. CTV News spoke to one of his victims today. She says she heard from the prison this morning that Thao would be released. She says she feels rotten that Thao will essentially be a free man, but is trying to put the ordeal behind her. Slick, wet roads are being blamed for an accident that happened in Saanich last night. A car that had 3 people inside lost control and went over an embankment on the way down Mount Doug on Churchill Drive. The passengers say it was a frightening experience. Saanich police say the people in the car had luck on their side. The vehicle was stopped from going over the embankment and farther down by a tree stump. Everybody inside escaped injury. Police remind you again to slow down on wet roads. A mother and her toddler have been rescued after spending a chilly and frightening night in the woods near Powell River. The mother and daughter were cold and tired, but otherwise okay. An RCMP helicopter spotted them from the sky late this morning. The search was launched when the pair failed to come back from an outing to pick mushrooms yesterday. They were discovered about 3 kilometers from where their van was parked. Well, if you ride the bus in Greater Victoria, you might face delays tonight. There are 62 bus runs on various routes that have been cancelled tonight because of the ongoing job action by BC Transit unionized drivers and mechanics. Here is a list of the buses that will sit idle this evening. This is the most since the job action began. Bus runs have been cancelled tonight on the following routes: the number 2 and the number 4, as well as on Route 6. Also the number 7 leaving the UVic Exchange and Douglas at View. If you take the 14, service has been cancelled, leaving the UVic Exchange, Victoria General Hospital, as well as Bay and Government and Douglas at Bay. Routes affected on buses affected on routes 15 and 16 as well. To find out more and to get specific times, go to bctransit.com.
Oh, it's frustrating for everyone, but I think it's a wake-up call for the municipality.
It's pretty frustrating when you have to get to places, and also we pay a fee for the bus pass, so I feel like it's pretty much a rip-off.
I haven't had too many problems with it just because there are other routes that facilitate me where I live.
So far, so good. Main buses are running, so you can't really complain too much.
BC Transit drivers have instituted an overtime ban this week. In all tonight, 62 cancellations, and Transit says you can expect that many again or even more tomorrow. Once again, if you're on the bus tonight, go to transitbc.com to get specific cancellation times. The union and BC Transit are at odds over wages and job security, specifically BC Transit's purchase of new community buses, which the union claims will put riders' safety at risk. Well, as the ghosts and goblins get ready to come out for Halloween and the parties go on this weekend, Saanich police are reminding you to play it safe. Officers say they do not want to see the sky light up like the 1st of July. Police remind you that fireworks are prohibited in Greater Victoria unless you have a permit already, and if you do have a permit, then those fireworks can only be ignited on private property and far away from any roadway. Officers say they haven't had to seize any fireworks this year, and they hope it stays that way. But if you are caught illegally lighting the night sky this Halloween, it's going to cost you.
There's a whole schedule of fines and offenses contrary to the bylaw. They start at as low as $100 and they go up as high as like $600+. So it just depends on the context and it depends on the section of the bylaw. But generally speaking, most situations where an officer would see some fireworks off an individual is about a $100 fine. So it can be quite steep.
And if you want a fireworks permit, you can get one, but you need to take a workshop with local firefighters first. And this weekend is your last chance to sign up before Halloween. If you are interested in doing that, you can call the Fire Prevention Division. The number's on your screen, 250-475-8800. 5,500. A family butcher shop is closing its doors for good after 34 years of feeding and serving Greater Victoria. Orr's Family Butcher has posted signs in its store windows thanking customers for their support over the years. The family is closing 3 locations in Brentwood Bay, Sydney and Saanich. The business, well known of course for the quality of its meat and its haggis. Orr's Butchers always did the ode to the haggis each year for CTV News. The family business was voted Best Island Butcher in 2006 and Best Sausage Maker in the island in 2003. Well, hundreds of people got their fill of the fall harvest last night from island producers at the University of Victoria. The UVic Sustainability Team launched its community market in the Student Union building. It included everything from island-produced meats to locally grown vegetables and fall fruits. Organizers say it's important to stress support for our local farmers.
The purpose of the market is to sell wonderful, great food and celebrate the fall harvest, but it was also a community building exercise for us. We wanted all sorts of different people on campus who are interested in food security, in healthy eating, and in promoting a diet that is less meat-based, locally based, to all come together in something where we can celebrate.
It's really cool. I bought hot sauces and some sprouts and some peppers, but I thought it was good. It's nice being able to do grocery shopping on campus after class.
UVic organizers say they were blown away by the success and they will consider making this pilot project market a regular event on campus. The Supreme Court of Canada will review the laws that surround the sex trade in our country. The top court has agreed it will hear a federal appeal of a lower court ruling that would have legalized brothels. The High Court will also review the law against public solicitation. Now, the rulings on those brothels were made by a court in Ontario, but the appeal is significant in British Columbia because the Supreme Court ruling would apply across the country. Advocacy groups maintain that the more we legalize the sex trade, the safer it is for sex trade workers. And the federal government will appeal a BC Supreme Court ruling that opened the door to assisted suicide in our province. The ruling struck down the prohibition on doctor-assisted suicide, the case brought forward by a West Kelowna woman suffering from ALS. She died from an infection earlier this month. The government says there is no reason for the courts to reopen the issue, maintaining that it was settled 20 years ago in a landmark case involving Vancouver Island's Sue Rodriguez. The judge in that case upheld the ban on assisted suicide. A minivan crashed into a junior high school in St. Paul, Alberta this morning. It happened just after 9:30. The van slammed into a classroom that was filled with grade 6 students. One child was pinned, 2 others were critically injured. The 3 were airlifted to a hospital in Edmonton. Several other students were hurt. The driver was arrested at the scene. Hurricane Sandy pounding its way across Cuba, packing winds of up to 200 kilometers an hour, and it's heading north. Hundreds of tourists were moved away from the beach resorts near Santiago today. The Bahamas are next in Sandy's sights. Tropical storm warnings have been issued for the east coast of Florida, and farther north they're watching it as far away as New England. In the meantime, Jamaicans are assessing Sandy's damage. The storm ripped through the island yesterday, causing flooding and widespread property damage. An elderly man was killed when a boulder came toppling onto his house. The Island Corridor Foundation is gaining ground with regional districts up and down the island. 3 of the 5 have now agreed to pay their share of the $3.2 million that is still needed to get rail service for passengers back up and running on the island. The Comox Valley, Cowichan Valley, and Alberni-Clayoquot regional districts have all made agreements in principle to fund the rail line restoration. It is just the Capital Regional District and the Regional District of Nanaimo that remain. The foundation says that if those 2 regional district boards get on board, passenger rail service on the island will finally be resurrected.
I would say, and this is just my own personal estimate based on what I know, how I know regional districts operate, and also my huge optimism for the project, that, you know, I'm thinking that this time next year, if all of this falls into place as it should now, we will be operating a passenger service on Vancouver Island.
The Island Corridor Foundation has already secured $7.5 million each from the federal and provincial governments, and says the money that it's requested from the island's regional districts is the final piece of the financial puzzle. Passenger service on the E&N line was halted in the spring of last year when inspections showed that the tracks were no longer safe. Since that time, the ICF has been working to raise enough money to restore them. Well, the oldest real estate company in the province is making a generous donation to help preserve a piece of British Columbia history. Pemberton Homes is passing down its business archives to the Royal BC Museum. The real estate company officially handed over its collection containing thousands of documents from the 1880s through the 1970s, including maps and pictures and client files. Archivists are currently poring over the data, getting it ready to display to the public.
So we're in the midst of processing it right now. We've been working since May to go through the collection and to find how it's organized and to create the indexes that will enable researchers to have access.
We have found some interesting things that go beyond Victoria. I would say for the most part, they're all related to Victoria, but we've found stuff to do with the Alberni Valley, we've found stuff to do with the Esquimalt water, we've found some shares for the Esquimalt water system, which I must give to the mayor one day.
Some amazing things in there. Acres of land for $5, waterfront for $200. The museum hopes to have all of the records available to the public by the new year. A local filmmaker is using the Capital Region as his backdrop for his next up-and-coming movie. Jason Burke and his film crew have been spotted all over the capital over the past few days. Our cameras caught up with the production crew setting up a scene at UVic's Centennial Stadium. The story is set in Boston. It's called Eidos, a sci-fi flick about a crazy storm of stones that rocks the city. Burke calls it action-packed.
Eidos is a giant tornado that basically throws out exploding stones. And this weather anomaly hits Boston. You got a storm chaser and his partner, and they got to stop it. So we're shooting today. We're doing a stadium that gets attacked by a giant tornado. Lots of exploding stones, lots of stunts. And then we're also going to be tearing apart the Victoria Harbor. We destroyed the wonderful lighthouse up at Fort Rod Hill, which ended up collapsing on Ben, who was played by William B. Davis, the smoking man off of X-Files. And we'll be doing a lot of shooting downtown. Again, it's a wonderful mix. With having Victoria for Boston, it's a beautiful fit.
The movie will be shot in 15 days. There's no set date once it's edited, but it will premiere on Canadian and American sci-fi channels. 4 Okanagan men have been arrested after police busted an international gun smuggling ring. The Combined Forces Special Enforcement Unit says officers in the Okanagan and in Florida seized more than 80 weapons in raids last weekend. The cache of weapons and ammunition includes several assault rifles, armor-piercing rounds, silencers, and bulletproof vests. Those raids were part of a 10-month undercover investigation that involved illegal cross-border trades in weapons reaching from BC to Florida, Montana, and Louisiana. So far, a man from Vernon is the only Canadian charged. 32-year-old Riley Stewart Cotts faces 34 weapons charges. Well, there's a legal battle brewing over who should care for Obi, a Dachshund from Oregon that has made headlines for his enormous size. The dog weighs 77 pounds. Obi has been living in Portland with a foster mom for a couple of months. She has appeared on various shows such as Today and started a Facebook page highlighting the struggle to get Obi to lose weight. Now the Oregon Dachshund Rescue is suing her to get him back. They say the foster mom does not have the dog's best interest at heart. She took to Facebook to defend herself, saying that Obi has instead inspired thousands of people and has lost 15 pounds while in her care. The Nanaimo woman has won her fight to ban choke collars from dog parks in the Harbour City after nearly losing her finger. Judy Rosas was trying to pry 2 large dogs apart in July when her hand became entangled in a dog's metal training collar. She and her dog were seriously injured, so she started a petition to ban choke collars from the off-leash areas. She collected more than 300 signatures and last night presented it to the Parks Committee, which agrees the collars are dangerous.
I had several dog trainers bring their expertise and knowledge to share with the committee. It was then forwarded on to the commission, who last night made a decision to pass wording to be implemented on the signage to have training collars removed on entrance of the park. At this point, it will be a park rule etiquette, and hoping that the community will comply. We didn't feel at this point there was a need to bring a bylaw. However, that could be readdressed down the road if the need arises that it has to go to that extreme measure.
This decision only applies in Nanaimo, and the ban is only at enclosed dog parks. The busy commute over the Millstone River in Nanaimo is about to get a whole lot smoother for drivers with the opening of the new Bowen Road Bridge. The 2-year, $11 million project is now finally complete. The road is wider, the bridge is now 5 lanes instead of 2, and underground infrastructure has been upgraded as well. The mayor says the city's roads have to keep up with population growth.
When you look around and see what we've got here, and I'm very proud of Nanaimo. It's a pretty special place, and I'd like to think that as we move down the road, we're trying to, this road in particular, trying to make improvements all the time. And it all speaks to quality of life, and I think we've got it. I'm so impressed, and I think this is going to be a huge addition.
The project stayed on budget and was completed nearly a week early, originally expected to be done by Halloween.